Now for creating the other routes, it's sort of the default would of course just copy and then paste this one out. But it's not really a good idea to like put all of these things here. So let's refactor this again. But before that, we just add the things. Oops, sorry, get status. You just add the test. Let's add NYC output because I just don't want it added on our Git modules or I mean Git history for now. So git add git test.test.js, git commit test, add our first test case, and then let's git add git ignore, git commit m test ignore.nyc output. Okay, there. And then git add app.js. What did we do again with app.js? We git commit m up chore, change the docs in the code. So after that, after everything has been set up, we'll now go and create our root. So for creating a root, it's not a good idea to put it all here, so we'll just add another folder which defines the roots. And then for that one, let's just add index.js. And we export it as roots. So this is how I would build my routing mechanism. Let's use not server but app. And then we'll just initialize all the roots. And let's sort of app.get. Well, actually, we can just copy paste it here. And that essentially is something. Now, we don't need to return the app because in JavaScript, if you are passing an object in the function, you are doing a pass by reference. So that means if I do something in this object, it automatically changes the object in itself. So in essence, if I require the roots method that we have set, so that would be roots or routes or whatever it is that you want, or how you want to say it. Well, I usually say it routes. I sometimes say it root. I don't want to go farther than that. So we can just call the application, and anything that is changed in here, it will automatically reflect it even without returning it. So yeah. Now after that, let us try testing it again and see if it works. So this is how you'll know that your code is working, if it passes the test that you have set before, even you just did a simple, and wait a minute on that, refactor, modularize the routing mechanism for this project. So there you go. Now let's add our first part here, which is to create. So let's create, because we are dabbling with a to-do, and going back to our discussion, we can see that if we are creating a resource, it should be, so like for this one, to do, we should create it as a URL to do here. And if we are doing a creation, we should use the post method. So for this one, for the sake of making it easier to find and more predictable to find, we create the to do folder and just use the keyword, okay. We use the keyword or the file name create.js. So that means we are creating the file itself. And let's do a create equals to the app itself. Actually, we can ditch the parentheses and it will be the same, making it easier, I guess. So we just delete. This is how I am really used to. App.post, and going back, we want to use post, and for creating the to do, we just use to do here, signifying that we are doing this. And then we want to create a handler. So for this one, I would just copy the code here. Async. Then we'll use both request and response here. So we can do this with request response, making it easier to read. And if I do this, because I forgot the arrow function. Let's add a param for the request, which is for this one. This is my trick, Fastify. We do the curly braces. Dot Fastify request, and then param import Fastify dot Fastify reply and the response. There you go. Now let's say I want to create an automatic ID whenever, like a unique identifier for a to do. So what I'm going to do again is to say create a unique identifier using the UUID function. So let's just add an additional part here. So this initializes the creation of a to-do, or this is the root for creating to-dos. And let's require the module that we have installed, and I would like to just rename it into UUID. And so given that, let's create a unique identifier. Because the setup here has a request coming from the request has a payload, and the payload is in the body. We'll go request it. And then let's just say a to-do would have a text and a done. You get it from the body. Let's just say there's no body. We'll just add this one up just in case. And this one here as well. Or I mean, the default would always be false. So in essence, get text and done with default false from body, regardless if it has a object value or null, which makes it return an empty object. So that is what it is doing. This one creates a unique identifier. So now that we are done, we just want to save it in a particular file. For now, we will not use database for this one for now. So what we can do is let's create a file named database.json, and it's actually a database that has a to-do list. So let's see that one out. So this is my to-dos. That's the JSON. So to read that, we'll use fs. To read that, we'll use fs. So let's read. I'm going to use read file sync for the sake of making it easier to code. And of course, once we have created the object, we need to write it back onto the JSON file. So require.fs should be const. There you go. And I just want to use no, don't need that. So we'll get the file name, which is database.json. We'll set the encoding so that it can properly read the file. Usually it doesn't need one, but this is more of a safety measure. Database equals JSON dot parse, because this is a string. We want to parse it as a JavaScript object. So we can do contents database string contents is equals to read file sync, the file name, and the encoding. Oops. And then database string contents. Now let's create the data with the ID, the text. Now we don't need to do this because it's just the same as this one. So if the property name and the variable name that you want to put into that property in the object is the same name, you don't need to do like text colon text because it's sort of there already. Then we'll just have to add like that date created, new date. Now I'm usually used to using the get time, which is actually a Unix epoch time in milliseconds. You can search it up in the internet what it means, but for the sake of our discussion, it is the number of milliseconds that has elapsed since January 1, 1970. So this allows us to have a more accurate date that is acceptable by anyone, and it's like an arbitrary date actually. If like you go before that, it's negative something, and after that is of course positive something. So now that we are done, we know that the setup for the database is an array of to-dos. So database to-dos that push, we just push the data here and we write it back. We create a new database string contents is equals to before we parse it, now we stringify it, which is the database itself. Then we just add this for making sure we added null and true when stringifying the object so that it looks so that the JSON string or file looks visually understandable. The thing is, if we don't add this, it will be just one line. So that's something that you'll need to think about if you're going to create files of JSON and you want it readable. But of course, making it readable would have a larger space, so take note of that. So now I want to add a file name and the new database string contents and the encoding itself, and we just return success through data. Now let's work it out. And app.js, so there you go. Oops, we remove this. This is sort of automatically created if I add the true statement. Now that we are done, we create a test for it, and to make it a little bit more predictable, we add a folder again that is similar to roots, test.js. And so for this one, we just copy and paste because that is how great developers do their stuff. Now, for the route for to-do, for creating a to-do, which is post to-do, we initialize this one, and it should return success through success data new object, new to-do object, and has a status when called using post. Let's just add that post URL to do, and we just add a payload, which is the body itself, with the to do the text is this is a to do, and how do I put it back again? The done is false. So now payload would always have the data, because we have set it here that it will return the data that has been created. Data, we have already set this success to be true. Now we just have to get const, which is the text, and done is equals to data, and we just do text that should equal the text above, and done should equal false because that is what we have put here. Now, another thing, we can, let's say ID. We'll just do this later. We just want to run this for now, which is npm test, and let's see if our code will work, or in essence if we have created the database and now it has failed. Let's see what happened. Yeah, it's failing because I forgot to add the route itself. So to be able to do that, we'll just create an index.js, which is essentially the same as this one, but we would initialize all the routes for to do, and instead of using this, we just for create, we use the create export, not export, const create is equals to require that create slash create, and then we just do this. Oh yeah, I forgot this one as well. Keep on forgetting things. So let's index. This is the to do. Let's change this. Const to do is equals to require to do, and we just put it here. Now that we are done, we do an npm test again, and it should finally work. Now, sort of. Database JSON create. Because of this, we'll need to use join. Oops. Yep. It's equals to require path, and let's just add this one up. Join the directory, the root directory name of this file, and this one, which is JSON, and let's try it out again. Now it works, but as you can see in the create line, there is a branch there that is not being covered. It's on line 24, which is this one. So what it means is that now let's see first if the database.json has been added. So as you can see, it's in here, which is correct, but we don't want to add always a file in the database, but we want to check if it's working. So let's read up the database. Read file sync is equals to require fs just in case you are wondering why I'm using database.json for now, because I don't want to overcomplicate things with adding a database already, which we will go through later on. But for the sake of this one, we just want to show you how to create a simple setup, or simple API. So let's get again this file, which is, we want to use join equals to required dot path join. Let's sort of set up the file name. It's equals to, again, database.json, and then use join. What's that again? Join their name and the file path itself. File. Let's have the encoding. And then we'll have the database string. Then we use the database equals to json.parse database string. And then after that, what happens next is we just try to find the index, find index. So it takes in a function. So we use the to do, and if to do dot id is equals to id, which is this one, if it's equal to id, it should return an index. And then let's index should not equal less than 1. What it means for this one is because the functionality for index, find index, or even just index of, is if an element doesn't exist, it will always return -1. So it should not be equal to -1. And const date, let's say, which is the text, which we can sort of text database, and done, which is done database, is equals to database.todo not slash index, and we just use this one, text dot should equal the same thing in the database, which I know it should be, but if things go south, we know that it should not work. Done database. So let's test it out if our system works. Oops, it failed. Let me check. Of undefined. I use S here. This is so even for me, I'm still creating mistakes, and that will not be edited out. Let's see if it tests. Now there's a failure again. Cannot read property of to of undefined. Because shoot, should have used to do's here. Come on, TJ. To do's, and it should sort of work. And now we got back from 24, and so we'll have another. Let's remove first this one. There you go. npm test. Let's see. Oops, there's line 24. Let's remove done, the default for done. There you go. We have something. And what we also have created is the one of the happy path. So once you are in the development world, development world, oh come on, if it's like some different world out there. The thing is, in this part, what we have just created is the happy path, which means it's the usual path of users that did the expected thing. So the next thing we will need to add is a way to test what if the unexpected thing happened. So like let's just add this one just for the sake of making my point. Async we will not add something for now, but for this one it should return true with the data and has status code when called using post, even if we don't provide false done property. So this is another happy path, but a different way of sending data. So that will be the next part of our video.